Hello, everyone, and welcome to our final report, which will be an ethical examination of the use of generative AI and deepfakes. So, generative AI has definitely had a huge explosion in the last 3 to 4 years in terms of popularity. Um, Artificial intelligence in general refers to algorithms that use millions of varied data sources to analyze patterns and glean information so that they can then generate new information or media based off of what they've trained on. There's a lot of potential in AI to streamline industries. It seems that most tech companies nowadays are trying to incorporate AI into some part of their products. And then it also has the potential to create new industries as well. But with these benefits, there also comes some potentials for harm. First of all, AI is rather famous for what it's called hallucinating, where it basically generates something as a fact, even though it is not true. And then the other potential is to mislead people. A technology that has grown in popularity is what's called a deepfake, where it can train on the performances of a famous person or even just their voice, and then generate a video or audio recording that impersonates that person. So in this presentation, we're going to look at a couple of different case studies. For example, the usage of AI in higher education, as well as the usage of AI, or I'm sorry, the usage of deepfakes in movies. And we're going to examine them using multiple different frameworks. We're going to start with the utilitarian perspectives and the technology's potential to create the most good and reduce harm. We will look through the lens of deontology with determining universal application and autonomy. We'll look at Rawlsian's justice's veil of ignorance to determine if the technology can be used fairly. And finally, we will consider the ethics of care to determine how these technologies impact our relationships. While we have a wide variety of fields that we're going to be looking at in our case studies, they all relate just because it shows the potential that AI has to revolutionize a lot of different aspects of our life.
Hi, my name's Melissa Donaldson, and I'm going to be talking about generative AI in higher education. So, the ethical issues for AI in higher education, is AI beneficial to higher education? I'm going to take a look at the stakeholders, which are students, teachers, decision makers, and the ethical issues, accessibility for students with disability, scalability of the data sets, and the lack of diversity in the data sets, data privacy, and AI model bias. So currently, AI, generative AI would not pass under Wallace and Justice because it isn't fair to the least advantaged. Currently, our models do not have diverse enough data sets, which would not be suitable for those, not in the main groups of people that we have now. This could change as data sets become more varied, but this isn't the case as of now. Current systems are not built with diverse data sets. More time must be invested in training these models for a more varied population, which would help ensure the fairness of the predictive models. And until these data sets can be more diverse, we cannot meet the ethical requirements for Wallace and Justice. Thank you.
This case study has to do with the application of deepfakes in movies and other media. Deepfakes are a pretty new technology that can be used to enhance or replace a performance of an actor. Um, there can be techniques like de-aging, where an actor is made to look younger than they currently are. Otherwise, they can do vocal sampling, which can be used to restore a unique voice of an actor that might have been lost due to an accident or just altered over time. And then actors can even have their likeness fully replaced and appear as a completely different person. Some stakeholders in this would be movie personnel like actors, directors, producers, and then more generally film companies. And then some others would be social media companies and just the general media consuming public. Some important dilemmas to think about would be that actors replaced by generated performances would not gain the credit that they might otherwise have gained if they appeared as themselves. It has the potential to tarnish the reputations of public figures if they're in a movie that they wouldn't have otherwise agreed to be in, or said or did something that they wouldn't have done. And then finally, it has the potential to mislead media consumers by taking a trusted person and having them do something or maybe promote something that they wouldn't otherwise have done. So in this case, we're going to examine it using Rawlsian justice. Rawlsian justice is really concerned about the fairness of a certain concern and looking at something through a veil of ignorance. So this is ignoring um, anyone's current social stature and really making sure that it can be completely fair for everyone, regardless of where they're at in life. And it has a special protection for the most vulnerable. So when we're looking at this case, we would want to ask ourselves, would it be fair to have an actor's likeness or voice generated or replaced? And they would argue no. First of all, lesser known actors would be exploited. Um, they could have their performance entirely replaced by the likeness of a more famous actor, which would cause them to never gain any fame. And especially in the movie industry, fame is what gets you better paying roles, so they would definitely be exploited in that way. And then using deepfakes without consent essentially violates a person's autonomy, it takes away their agency. It makes people do something that they wouldn't have otherwise done. So that essentially is just not fair to anybody. So to make deepfakes in movies an ethical thing to do, Rawlsian justice would call for first disclosure so that people know that something is deepfaked and wouldn't be misled by it, and also the consent of parties, both the person giving the performance and if someone's likeness is being generated over that performance, it would require that person's consent as well.
I'm presenting a case that highlights the dark side of AI and social media. Rana Ayub's deepfake case in 2018. After criticizing the Indian government, journalist Rana Ayub became the victim of a non consensual deepfake porn video created to discredit and silence her that spread virally within 48 hours, leading to death threats, harassment, and a temporary retreat from social media. This raises major ethical concerns: privacy violation, loss of consent, misinformation, and threats to press freedom. Stakeholders include Ayub herself, political groups, social media platforms, and the public. The broader danger is that such tech can be used to silence dissent, especially targeting women. If we look at this case through the Rawlsian justice, which is based on the idea of fairness and equality, Rawlsian asks us to imagine making decisions from behind a veil of ignorance where we don't know our gender, profession, or social status. In that position, would any of us accept a world where deepfake technology could be used to publicly humiliate or silence someone, especially for expressing their opinions? Of course not. We'd all want strong protections in place because we could be the victim. Rana Ayub, as a female journalist criticizing those in power, represents someone vulnerable in society. Justice, according to Rawls, demands that we protect the most disadvantaged. The use of a deepfake to silence her not only exploits her position, it undermines fairness, free speech, and press freedom. From this perspective, the act is deeply unjust and highlights the urgent need for legal protections and ethical media practices that treat all individuals with equal respect and dignity. To conclude, the most morally responsible and defensible action in cases like Rana Ayub's is to enforce strict legal prohibitions against non-consensual deepfakes. As we've seen, applying Rawlsian justice helps us prioritize fairness and protect those most vulnerable, like women and journalists who are often targeted online. But laws alone aren't enough. Society also needs to educate people about consent, digital ethics, and misinformation so we can all contribute to a safer, more respectful online environment. where public voices are heard, not harassed into silence. Thank
I'm going to talk about the use of generative AI and deepfakes in the realm of politics. There's a few key ethical issues that I want to highlight first and foremost, which is that in general, the use of generative AI and deepfakes is problematic because it can be difficult for people to distinguish what's real from what's fake when they're using social media or viewing any type of media. Oftentimes, deepfakes in particular are created without the consent of the individuals that are depicted, and it spreads misinformation. It's deceptive. It can manipulate public opinion. It can involve bias, and it can lead to the mistrust in any type of media and political system. And it also has the potential to influence elections. So there's a particular case study that I wanted to highlight as an example of this, and that is in 2024 when Donald Trump posted a deepfake of Taylor Swift endorsing his run for presidency on the social media platform Truth Social. Of course, Donald Trump and Swift and the social media platform Truth Social are key stakeholders, but the others involved are also creators of the deepfake itself, and then any consumer of that deepfake. So anyone who uses the social media platform Truth Social and came across that video, as well as other social media platforms, because it did not stay isolated to just that one. When Taylor Swift found out about this deepfake, she released a public statement denouncing Trump's decision to post that and clarifying that she does not endorse him for president. She did not consent to that video being made. It is fake. And she then went on to endorse Kamala Harris for the 2024 presidential election. There's a few ethical frameworks that can be used to evaluate whether Trump's posting of this deepfake was ethical or not. The specific one I want to look at today is Relation Justice, which the basis of this framework is that fairness, justice, and equity should be the main factors considered in decisions, and that everyone's entitled to their freedoms, and one person's freedom should not impose on or create a barrier to another person being able to exercise their own. So in this specific case with Donald Trump and Taylor Swift, it could be argued that Trump was exercising his First Amendment rights to freedom of speech by sharing whatever he wanted to on his social media account. However, his decision to share that deepfake infringed on Taylor Swift's right to consent to content being made that depicts her. So overall, his posting of this deepfake is unethical under this framework.
So our creative original element for our project today is a short story. It's the resurrection of Ava Sterling. And the story is set in 2032, and they couldn't stop talking about a movie about Eclipse Eternal. It was a cinematic triumph, hailed as a spiritual successor to Blade Runner and Interstellar. Audiences wept, gasped, and rose to their feet in a packed theater across the globe. But none of that compared to the buzz around one name, Ava Sterling. Ava was the beloved actress who tragically died 15 years earlier and had returned to the screen in a performance so authentic, so moving, that not even longtime fans forgot she was gone. She smiled, cried, screamed, and whispered lines of impossible beauty. Her presence was alive. And yet, Ava never stepped foot on set. The story goes and talks about how they're using deepfakes, and they're not giving credit to the person who was actually doing the acting on the stage. Her name was Maya. She didn't get any credit, no disclaimer, nothing. So it kind of brings back to the front of like this is something that we actually have to talk about when it comes to deepfakes. Um, and using them in movies because it's just not something that we even have talked about yet. And it's something that we need to moving forward so that um, stuff like our made up story doesn't happen. Thank you.
As a group, we had the opportunity to look at the use of generative AI and deepfakes through several lenses, including politics, social media, film, TV, and entertainment, and in higher education. We've considered the different priorities and protections that the various ethical theories and frameworks outline. So, utilitarianism, deontology, Rawlsian justice, and the ethics of care. What was clear through those frameworks is that when it comes to the use of generative AI and deepfakes, it's important to consider what's best for society collectively, as well as respecting individual rights, considering people who are the most impacted or vulnerable through the use of it, and how it's going to impact our relationship with media, our relationship with education, our trust in media and politics and political systems. We came to the same conclusion that there is potential for generative AI to streamline certain processes and allow for more knowledge, but there's also very few protections in place for the misuse of it. So we do think it's worth further developing this type of technology, but believe that it's very important to prioritize teaching people how to distinguish AI from what's real, that it's important that there should be disclosures on any type of AI content, and that consent must be at the forefront of any type of deepfake that's created, and it should not have a place in politics at all. And furthermore, there needs to be efforts to deter people from creating this type of content without consent of individuals depicted in it or with nefarious intentions in mind. And there needs to be legal repercussions when instances do occur where it's unethical.